In 1983, the property known as One South Church consisted of a total of 8 parcels of land controlled by 3 different owners. Who remembers the main centerpiece parcel, what it was? Oh, come on. James Sellers, are you around? What? Come on, you used to shop there. The great Meyerson White House. Wow, we're getting dusty and old here. I can't believe it. Come on, who remembers the Meyerson White House? All right, couple names. Thank you, thank you. The group that bought those properties was known as Reliance Centro, and they demolished them. They combined all 8 parcels, put them into 3 tax codes, and then started a team called the Reliance Centro Limited Partnership. The construction of the new 23-story office tower was completed in 1986. Curtis Fentress of Fentress Architects designed the building, and Suncorp was the builder. The property was first known as United. First known as United Bank Tower, later changing to Citibank Tower, Norwest Tower, and Unisource Bank Tower. Moving on. Construction also included a 3-level below-grade parking garage, and there was a pad that was put in with infrastructure underground that was the southeast portion of the property for a future office tower that we are going to hear. Now, to talk about the construction of that project, I would like to introduce Martin Fedland with SUNT. Marty, if you can come on up here while I'm introducing you. He joined SUNT in 1984 and currently serves as a senior vice president for the Southwest District, responsible for all of SUNT's vertical construction in Arizona, New Mexico, West Texas, and Colorado. Marty has served in the roles of field engineer, project manager, superintendent, and project director for over 30 years of constructing offices. But most importantly, Marty, when he was in his 20s, was the field engineer for One South Church. Please welcome Marty.
Somewhere stuck behind a file cabinet or something, we found this recently, which is an interesting picture that depicts the slip-form elevator and stair core of One South Church, or I actually remember calling it Tucson City Center. It was before United Bank did their naming rights. But back then, 1985 was the time frame, and the process we were going through to construct the building was a relatively new one. Slip-form technology was developed over many years. And it was primarily used to build grain silos and silos of various types. And we at SUNT, in our concrete group, got involved in building missile silos and grain silos in the 60s. And in the 70s, we decided to try to figure out a way to use it for elevator cores too. Instead of being round, they could be square, they could have door openings in them for elevators, etc. And our company started traveling the country doing that, and eventually, toward the end of the slip-form era, so to speak, we got to do one right here at home in Tucson. So that was pretty special. I was, as he mentioned, I was a field engineer. I was 23 years old, and in that picture, I'm somewhere up there, scratching my head, trying to make sure that this 340-foot tall piece of concrete stays vertical and plumb, and that all these little embeds, steel embeds along the way are in the right place at the right elevation so that all the steel will fit into the structure just like it's supposed to, like Tinker Toys, going up 26 stories. So it was a very interesting time. It was fast. We pour a floor a day, so 3 levels of basement and 23 stories. It was 26 days we executed the actual placement of concrete for that height. It was very challenging. There was about 240 cubic yards of concrete per lift or per floor on a typical day. We would start the pour at midnight, and we would finish sometime around 8:30, 9 in the morning, and then continue with a second shift that would do the rebar for the next day and set blockouts and embeds and all the things that have to happen on a cyclical basis, one floor at a time. The actual form that the concrete goes in is only 4 feet tall on a slip form. And you fill it up and you get it to start setting up, and then these hydraulic jacks that are positioned all over there's probably 20 or 24 of them on a form of this size. 1 inch at a time, they climb and they raise the 4-foot form an inch at a time. And so about every 3 minutes, every 2.5 minutes, every 5 minutes, depending on what part of the day it is, we move actually 1 1/16 is one cycle. And you just do that enough times, you do a floor, and you do enough floors, you got an elevator tower. Some other, let's see, the foundation that was under the One South Church building was, at the time, the largest mat slab ever poured in at least southern Arizona, we're not quite sure, only to have then been topped by the mat slab at Pima Courts that we did 3 years ago, because it was slightly larger in cubic yardage. So that's kind of a fun fact. I was involved for that 3 month period while we did the slip form, and then I went back to Phoenix and I built a project for Western Savings up there. So I don't know a lot about the granite cladding or even the steel structure, other than making sure it all fit. Many compadres of mine in our Tucson office worked diligently on those, and we couldn't find any of them anymore. They're too old. No, actually, there are a couple that have recently retired that I did touch base with on this and got some interesting information. One of the things I thought was cool about this was a building pretty ahead of its time, architecturally and from a design perspective. In 1985, Fentress Architects, very progressive architect. While the granite cladding and window wall became pretty much a signature for the late 20th century architecture of office buildings, this was on the early end of that. And there were many sort of new technologies developed. One of the things that was very new to us at the time was that granite, instead of just being polished, could be flamed and could be honed and could create different colors in the same granite type within a structure. You see that all the time now, but back then that was pretty new and interesting. We also panelized all of that on the project, which was being kind of pioneered in those days, meaning you're putting up big, long panels of granite rather than one piece at a time. With that, it's a little background on what I know about One South Church. I would try to answer any question anybody had.
Any questions for Marty? All right, well, Marty, thank you very much. So the building goes up, and Reliance Centro Limited Partnership maintained ownership of that until they sold it in December 15th of the year 2000. The property was then purchased by Big Tucson Limited. It was part of a portfolio sale, and they purchased it for $24.8 million. $24.8 million. 14 months later, they increased the occupancy up to 97%, sold the property, a leveraged transaction, for $32.5 million. A show of hands, who would like to be involved with a 14-year hold on a $7.7 million profit in 14 months? None of you. Okay, a couple hands in the back. All right, rest of you were asleep. Amazing pop. That owner continued to hold that property until just in October 2nd of this year, and they sold, I'm sorry, let's go back here a second. So they sold it for 32.5, and that owner, the Hub Property Trust, held on until just last month when they sold the property to One SC Partners Limited for 32 million. 32.5 purchase, 32. Not as good a hold, and they held that for 13 and a half years. So the question mark is, we hope the next owner does better, and we will now listen and hear what the new owners have to say. If I could have Zach and Matt pop up here, I'll introduce you. Zach Fenton. Mr. Fenton has extensive experience in finance and real estate. He graduated from the Eller School right here at the U of A. And before that, he worked in Beverly Hills for a family diversified investment firm where he was part of a 3-person investment team. After returning to Tucson, Mr. Fenton shifted his focus back to real estate, an area which he has over 15 years of experience. And he formed a multitude of apartment investments and syndications and has participated in numerous development and redevelopment projects. Currently, he co-manages a portfolio of approximately 750,000 square feet in the Tucson area. One of his partners, Matt Thrasher, is the managing partner of Thrasher Law Offices here in Tucson. Matt represents entrepreneurs, financial institutions, real estate developers, and other companies and individuals on an array of corporate finance and real estate matters. Prior to forming his own firm, I can't read my own writing here, I apologize. He was with the law offices of Snell and Wilmer and Locke, Lord, and Bissell. Matt and Zach, take it away.
This is a great transaction to work on. Both Zach and I are very involved in downtown. Both of us live in downtown. When I moved back to Tucson in 2002, my first job was in One South Church working for Snell and Wilmer, who's still located there. And it was a great opportunity to partner some of my really good clients together, Roger, Gurpreet Jaggi, who's at Iridius Capital, and Zach. We were all very attracted by the acquisition opportunity. Everyone knows about the revitalization of downtown that's gone on in the last few years. There's been over $1 billion of public and private investments in the downtown area, plus the modern streetcar that's gone in the last year and a half. We thought that One South Church was, it's a Tucson icon. You see it in the backdrop of every landscape or cityscape of Tucson. It's in the backdrop of KVOA News at night, and it's just always a presence there. It really is the premier building in the city. And then half of the investment group, Jaggi and Roger, were particularly excited about the half-acre parcel that's located right next to the current office tower that is ready to go with a second tower that Roger will talk about a little bit later. And Zach, you want to talk about? Zach specifically has a lot of involvement in downtown. So he was going to share some of how the deal came together a little bit behind the scenes, and then we'll talk about the plans for the future.
So we being mostly my dad has been involved in downtown for a while. I don't think the concept of reurbanization is new to anyone. We've got the sort of live, work, play that everyone is looking for, and I think the live and the play component has been there and has been developing, and the work part has been lacking. Most people will probably agree that the office market in Tucson has not been great for a while, but our theory is that that is just lagging, and as more residential projects come online, as downtown Tucson establishes itself more on sort of a regional scale, becomes a destination place where people want to move to and live and hang out, there will inevitably be demand for office space, and so that's really what attracted me to the building. I think I made my first offer on it in about 2010 when I first heard that Unisource was moving out, and I made, I think, 4 or 5 more offers after that. and they never wanted to sell. And then all of a sudden, there was actually a hostile takeover within Hub. I don't know the exact details of it, but the management changed. They got into the company at a much lower basis and basically said any property that's not in one of our core markets, we're going to sell off. This was one of them. It was their only property in Tucson. And so we jumped in. I think there were initially 11 other bidders, sound about right? So it's fairly competitive, more competitive, I think, than most people anticipated. And for us, we knew it was a great building. We knew we wanted it, so we were very aggressive on our timing and some of our other terms. Start to finish, I think we were about 70 days, and now we own it.
Yes, this deal came together very, very quickly. I was actually in a conference room with Roger and Joggy and Zach talking about another development opportunity for some property that the Fintons have, and Zach kind of threw out there at the end of the meeting, like, oh, by the way, I've heard One South Church is on the market. Maybe we could do something there. About probably 15 days later, I was working on the purchase agreement for the building, and we had the first introductory conference call with Hub and their council, actually while Joggy and I were in Thailand for a wedding. So I had to coordinate a time that worked for everybody, but that was our first get to know you conference call. And I think that's when Hub saw that, you know, these guys are serious. They close deals. Roger and Joggy are both, they're deal makers. They don't break escrows. They always follow through on their deals, at least in my experience. And I think they saw that we were serious, that we were able to pull the money together, that we had good relationships with lenders. And ultimately they picked our bid. We were very excited about it. We think there's a lot of opportunity there, especially for local owners. We all thought that one of the problems the previous owners had was they're pretty inflexible in working with tenants. Basically, if you didn't want to take down 5,000 or 10,000 square feet of space, they weren't particularly interested in talking to you. Zach's going to talk about some of the plans that we have to attract some younger tenants, some startup companies. We're going to modernize some of the build-outs that we can do for tenants to really improve the space just beyond your traditional law firms and accounting firms that are currently there. When we acquired the building, it was 66% occupied. Right after closing, we signed a new lease with National Bank of Arizona. So I think in January, they'll be moving into the north side of the ground floor right off the lobby. They'll be relocating their office that's currently on Stone into One South Church. So we are excited to get another big local name into the building, and then are currently working on a couple other lease proposals for even more space in the building. So hopefully we'll have some exciting news, in the next 2 or 3 months. The purchase economics are up here on the slide. We raised just a little bit under $11 million of equity, which was split between Zach's group and Iridius Capital. We worked with Prime Finance out of Chicago on the bank financing, and then we have the total cost for everything. The purchase price was $32 million. Our lender group is great to work with. Younger company, very fast moving, as Zach said, from probably that initial call in like mid-July or late July to closing on October 1st. Very fast moving transaction. The key partners in the project, Iridius Capital is an investment company here in Tucson. They specialize in private and alternative investments, mainly in the financial services space, and also real estate, obviously. They have about 14 or 15 different funds operating right now. In total, have around $280 million under management. ZFI Holdings and the Fintons, Zach told you a little bit about their background. And then Area Development with Roger Carver, who is going to take over when we start to develop the second pad. We stayed with CBRE as the property manager. They've been doing a great job. All the tenants, rave reviews from the tenants about them when we did the tenant interviews. And then we did bring in a new leasing agent for the property, Dave Wesson at the Waterfall, Dan Wesson at the Waterfall Group. Some brief bios. Jim already gave the introductions for myself and Zach. Roger will talk a little bit later, and then Joggy, who wasn't able to make it today, he's the managing director of Iridius Capital, helped raise a significant chunk of the equity that was involved in this project, and has done, along with Roger, has done a lot of other real estate developments here in town, as well as in Texas and a few other locations. A few of the improvements that Zach's planning to talk about. On the right is a picture of the spec space that we have going in. It's about 1,500 square feet on the 11th floor. It's going to be a very modernized build-out, polished concrete floors, exposed roofs, something that's unlike what's already in One South Church. We're hoping that'll bring a younger dynamic into the building. Startup companies, technology companies that might need a little bit less space and don't want the traditional look. And then Zach can talk about some of the other improvements we have planned.
We're really excited about some of the upgrades. It's a great building. Everyone that walks in there, I think, has felt that it's a great building, but it needs a little refresher. So our strategy is to start bottom and work our way up, similar to how Sunt did it. The garage, for instance, was a big concern for most of the tenants. They said that it's been the exact same way for 30 years. They go in there and feel like someone's going to jump out with a scream mask and stab them. So we're going to start by cleaning that up, putting in new lighting, fresh paint. It's the first thing people see when they visit the building. And if you're going to be, I had several lawyers tell me that when you have a client coming to pay you $500 an hour, they want the Class A experience from the very beginning. So moving up from the garage, we're then doing some major lobby renovations. It looks virtually the same as it did when it was built 30 years ago. A lot of the elements we're going to keep. The granite would be pretty difficult to replace, but some of the gold trim and the other elements that kind of scream 1980 are going to be upgraded to give it a fresh new look. Same with the elevators, take that design all the way up. And then this is not the best picture, but it's kind of where we were at as of yesterday when I took that picture. We are creating more industrial spec space, creative space. A lot of the current build-outs are very traditional, ceiling grid, carpet, very nice, and a lot of tenants will continue to go that route, but we also think there's an opportunity to attract, I don't want to say younger, but more fun tenants, tech firms, probably younger though, probably younger. And so this is going to be our showcase to give people an idea of what that look will be like, and I think once we finish it up, get the concrete polished, get it painted, I think it'll be really cool. And anyone that wants to see it, I say give me a call. I'm happy to show you space.
Any questions?
What about the roof? You have the roof up there.
The roof?
Yeah.
What about it?
No, there was a roof. You said you're gonna improve the roof. Is that just you do something fun on the roof? Or
No. So if I said, I'm sorry if I said roof. So ceiling, we had taken out the ceiling grid and exposed. There's quite a bit of height above it. So we've got the duct work that you can see, and replacing the fluorescent lights with, in this case, we did some track lighting. So yeah.
Just curious, what's around the square footage of the project?
248.11. Yeah.
Where did the difference between the purchase price of $35,688,000 go?
The lawyer took that. Reserves, part of the capital improvement budget is in that number. Yeah.
What kind of rental rate are you gonna get in there?
Our asking rate is $29.50 full service.
How does that compare to the rates for something bought? I'm wondering.
Much higher. Not much higher. We're incrementally higher. to account for the fact that we're repositioning it as just a
And what was the vacancy rate of purchase?
66%. Now it's 66 point, oh, occupancy? Oh yeah, vacancy, 1/3 vacant, 2/3 occupied.
The improvement cost to refit an office to look like that versus kind of the traditional office, is that more or less when you do something?
It ends up being about the same, honestly. You have to do a lot of work to the mechanical system to make it look nice. No, that doesn't matter. Yeah, at the end of the day, you're maybe saving on walls and other things, but the cost of the demo and the other items sort of add up to the same.
And are you installing high-tech wiring and stuff to service those types of tenants?
High-tech wiring, sure, yeah.
Zach, in your acquisition, were there any surprises on the upside and on the downside?
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. There were in general, there were very few surprises. The seller's agent, who's with CBRE up in Phoenix, Barry Gable, I think they did a phenomenal job of really packaging it and putting out all the information, and we knew about a lot of the issues with the mechanical system and whatnot from the very beginning. So the only surprise, which Matt pointed out, is the appraisal came back high, which in today's environment, we were kind of expecting worse, but it made us feel all the better about the purchase price.
You seemed surprised earlier when Marty told you that on the 5th floor some caulking was needed to keep the floor plates from
No, yeah, I had seen that before and I overlooked it, and then when he said something,
Not true.
Any other questions before we move on with the project?
Parking, that's included?
what's that?
The parking
Included
in the
with,
rent that you're, the 29, you said?
nope, we're charging, well, I would say it depends on the lease. Some
But
came
what, at
along.
29 and 5 year, 10 years?
We're making a big push for providing as little parking as possible. We have a lot, I think, relative to other office buildings downtown, but still by kind of the Tucson standard, 2 per 1,000 is not a lot, and that's 2 per 1,000 based on the existing building, and when we build a second tower, might be half that. So we're really trying to get people to park elsewhere, ride the streetcar. If they want to pay for parking, we'll rent it to them, but at market rate.
Okay, Zach and Matt, thank you very much. So last to talk about the tower, Roger coming up. Roger Carver grew up in Tucson. Actually was a neighbor of mine for, what'd you put up with me for 10 years or so in Tucson? He cut his teeth. Thank you, Roger. Love you too. He's with the Estes Company for back in their heyday. He had moved over to a public REIT that they had started it until it was merged with the largest apartment REIT in the country. He then came back to Tucson, went to work for Bert Lopez at HSL for a few years before breaking out on his own. And now he's developed around 4,000 apartment units over the years with partners, and he's currently has several thousand under construction in the Tucson, Phoenix, and now Dallas marketplaces. Roger.
Thank you, Jim. Well, heck, it's really a privilege to be able to talk to you today about this project. It's very rare to be able to be involved with a project that's so unique. I've got very little in the way, I've got nothing really in the way of designs for what we have in mind. We're still completely in the exploratory phase, a lot of investigation ongoing. So we don't really know what can be done with the pad. As Zach and Matt mentioned, we bought the property very quickly. We were not completely naive about the value of the potential second tower. We had made a decision at Erie Development sometime around a year ago that we were going to start to move away from just doing suburban casita-type luxury rental developments and start to migrate and follow the pattern across the country towards urban living. And to that end, my wife and I took a loft apartment right in downtown Tempe, the Orchid House next to City Hall. We wanted to live the lifestyle ourselves and not just be academic about it and look at everybody else's projects and things. We wanted to actually live that lifestyle. And we learned a lot of things over this last year, both good and bad. We've had a lot of interesting experiences of what it really means to live downtown in an active environment. We've set out from our loft to walk to the movie theater, for instance, and on Mill Avenue there are a lot of cafes and a lot of activity. We can hear the music from our loft till about 2 in the morning. We hear voices passing by even after that. But we've stopped and said, well, we're hungry. Rather than eat after the movie, let's just stop right here. There's somebody playing live music, and it looks like a fun environment on the sidewalk here. And have a drink, meet friends because it's kind of a mingly environment, meet new friends, have something to eat, another drink, and gee whiz, at 2 o'clock in the morning after dancing and having a really fun time, we stumble back to our loft and the next day say, geez, you know, that has not happened in Cimarron in the entire time that we've lived there. Other times you're a little crabby and not so enthused by all of the density and the activity and just the sidewalk scene. And so we, after getting this property in escrow, we've spent a lot of time now in other cities, Seattle, San Francisco, San Diego, really focused. But it was about a month after we took our loft in Tempe that we found a project to develop, and we spent much of this year actively working on developing 2 16-story towers right off of Mill Avenue, off of the lake. And you know, it was ground into me early in my career that infrastructure is where it's at. It's not glamorous by any means, but gee whiz, at the end of the cycle on your development project, you look back, infrastructure usually breaks developers when they break, and all of the problems and errors and everything seem to come in that fixed cost that's hard to judge. So we had come to respect what the cost is to do these underground garages. And when we got to this project, we have very little time, but we had a good sense, and we didn't explain completely. Zach and Matt and Joggy and I bought the entire block together, and then Erie Development took an option from our ownership group to develop the second tower. The option comes at a $3.5 million price, but we believe that if this property were in downtown Tempe, this would probably be about $14 million worth of land, infrastructure, parking, depending on just how you allocate the parking out. But it's a very significant cost, and it takes a lot of nerve to bring a project to Tucson that's being done on all these other communities, because we haven't had incremental steps. We haven't done smaller projects and then build a little larger one and a larger one, and you can stretch out the projections. Here we're going to try to go from a very small creep of new product coming into downtown to a great big one. So to us, we felt like the $10 million advantage, and that includes the potential of using the GPLIT financing that the projects have been getting in downtown. So since I don't have designs to show you, what I'm going to show you real fast is just the setting and describe the capacity. We may not build to the full capacity, but it's interesting to at least assess what could be done here and then figure out, well, what should we do given this year and the need to be successful right off the bat. So this is a photograph I took of the 3D, it's about a 3-foot model that existed, that was in storage in a dusty container in the building. And you can see these were going to be twin buildings. They're virtually identical. Turns out that the base of this second tower is a little bit larger than the square base of the first tower. So there's a little bit more capacity in the second tower if you ignore the kind of south triangle-shaped wing there. I'm going to just also make a call to people's creativity. We've got a beautiful set of murals, tile ceramic murals that exist on the property. And when you drive by, it might not be as apparent as you might think just exactly where this building would go. So I took some photographs. I'm also going to talk just really quickly about this plaza and the opportunity here in the plaza. Ben's Bells, the founder of Ben's Bells, just happens to be officed right across Broadway. And she thought that the long-standing plywood, disguise around the elevator shaft was not so attractive. So she took it on herself and her organization to have volunteers from all over Tucson produce tiles that would come together in these beautiful murals. And she filled all four sides surrounding the elevator shaft. It was school children, it was adults, and what was really interesting to me is that here's a 50-foot, and I took this picture, it's kind of blurry, but sort of makes the point anyway. There is a gigantic existing shaft that goes all the way to the bottom of the 3-story garage and 1 floor above grade that's hidden by these murals. And you can kind of see the setting here a little bit. The beautiful 1929 Chase Bank building is in the background, and Art Wadlin and Robbie Kaler's new building is there on the right side. Here's kind of a blow-up of these murals. As you get closer and closer, you realize that people put their names on them. And the whole concept is the be kind, is the kind of the kindness concept. Jeanette's story, how she got the organization started, is a really fascinating one that I don't have time to go into here. But what I want to emphasize was just that it's a homegrown organization that has now had over 26,000 volunteers and has chapters across the country and a presence across the country. We take it for granted here in Tucson because I grew up here, and we've not, I don't think, really fully recognized it. So we committed to Jeanette that these panels will not get destroyed. These need to move out around town. If we can use them on the property, we will, but others should be giving us ideas too on where these can go. We think they're transportable, and I think they're very meaningful. So here's our setting. We've got these little boxes, little blue boxes, are hiding steel I-beams that are sticking about a foot up out of the concrete. I laid a dollar bill down on one of them the other day, and just one leg of these steel H-beams is as thick as a dollar bill. They're intended to hold up the weight of this 340-foot building. So I think that we take for granted this plaza. It's about a half acre itself. The building pad is a half acre, and this little plaza is a half acre. It sits right at Congress and Stone, and I think it could be a real key to helping anchor this west end of the entertainment and energetic corridor right across the street from the Fox Theater. So our ambition is to figure out how to do a building, a brand new building, that's maybe not a twin sister of the existing building, maybe a cousin. It needs to relate. We definitely need to make sure that this block comes off feeling like it's integrated and makes visual sense and functional sense. But I think we have a fantastic opportunity that some of the other projects that are in the pipeline coming to market may not have. So to me, a big goal would be to really do something with the plaza that adds energy, adds focus, and a real mix of uses. I put these Renoir paintings because they've always, to me, captured that sense of just fun in a cafe kind of an environment. But I look around and I see that at Old Town Artisans, Joe has achieved this, already exists over at La Cucina, and it definitely exists. I didn't get the best picture here. I wish I would have taken one of the many, many I have in my mind of Hotel Congress's plaza on the north side. But they definitely achieved that sort of a exciting cafe kind of a feel that spills out of a use adjacent to the open space. So that's sort of the target for us, is just that we want to create a building that would be most likely 25 stories tall, because residential, and what we plan is, at the moment, this changes constantly, is to do condominium sales in the top floors, perhaps 4 to 6 floors, do luxury residential rental in the whole middle part of the building, do a small hotel of a couple of floors near the base, and of course, retail at grade. So that's our vision. The timing, we believe, because we have the infrastructure already completed, the parking's already in place, and all we have to do is go vertical with the building, we can shave a dramatic amount of time off the schedule. And it's conceivable, and it is our target, to try and be occupying the new building by mid-2018.
Questions for Roger?
Charlie?
Hey, Roger, how you doing?
Good.
On your schematic, there's total of 500 parking spaces underground,
There's 500 existing spaces.
and you guys are supposed to split, but Zach made it sound like you might get more years.
I'm sorry, Charlie, didn't hear the
Are you guys going to split that up? I mean, will you have 250 for your residents?
Yeah, we need to work it out, of course. We need to fill the existing building first and foremost, and then we need to allocate spaces for the new building. Parking is the issue with urban development, and what's perplexing is that we strongly believe that the demand for parking will drop rapidly over time as folks like my wife and I come into the market and quickly realize that, gee whiz, we just don't need to be following the pattern that we've always followed. At our loft, we've had the experience repeatedly that it'll be a Thursday or Friday, and we'll just realize, wow, we haven't moved the car since Monday. And we haven't needed to, we haven't wanted to, we didn't do anything to not get in the car, just when you have everything so close. And I'm absolutely thrilled that Johnny Gibson's Marketplace is open now, and they've done, by my criteria, they've done a fabulous job. It's a fully functional, fresh foods, prepared foods. It's got a plaza. It's got a liquor license and just packaged goods, anything you could want. It's about 4 times, I guess, the size of the Rincon Market, which was my prior favorite place to drop in and grab a sandwich. So, yes. Hi, Sandy.
About the city of Tucson,
Yes.
have they, let me say this correctly, have they approached you with any special demands or considerations or affordable housing concept requirement, anything like that?
They've not, but we don't believe at the moment that we need any entitlements. We think that the zoning allows the use. Again, the low-lying fruit would be to just build that second tower exactly as it is, but use it for residential. We've had a few fleeting fantasies of, well, why not build it a little taller? So our tallest building in town is from this century, not the last century, those kinds of things. But we're also cognizant that, you know, nothing would do more to promote development in downtown than have a real success, a real hit right off the bat. And the way to do that, of course, is to limit the supply side, build a little less than the market really wanted, and have a legacy of, hey, it just filled right up, and we were able to raise rents. We did everything in a way that we could keep the costs under control. I think we have, because of the existing base and what we paid, I think we have maybe a 35-cent a square foot rent advantage, maybe something like $50,000 a unit by virtue of not having to do, you know, what we would have on a greenfield site. So, you know, we haven't really gotten engaged with the city, and that's the danger of presenting anything at this stage, is that you only get locked in. Everything you say, people go away naturally and assume that it's gospel, when in fact we're turning the Rubik's Cube faster than you can imagine. and crunching numbers, and every time new info comes in, we modify everything. So it could turn out to be a simple residential building with retail at grade. Yes, ma'am.
How many for sale?
We think about 30. One of the things that happened is when we passed the hat around town to raise the equity money, we had literally about 9 or 10 people who said, absolutely, I'd love to own a piece of this property. Here's my check, and by the way, and I had a prepared joke. It's not going to be spontaneous now, but I did want to inform you that your dues for this year qualify you for a unit, and we'll go ahead and bill you. You just have to indicate if you want to lease a unit with us or buy one. But you have a down payment already.
Works out, we have a $300,000 invoice for you, Robert. Any other questions? John Franchek.
What about the size of the condo, and what do you think, I know it's early, but what do you think it would cost to purchase one?
We are really trying to conceive a product that can come in around $250 a foot. That sounds like silliness in other markets, right up the way in Tempe. They would just laugh at you. How could you possibly do that and price it to that cost? But again, there's this $10 million advantage. And the advantage dissipates if you don't build the full structure. And I don't know, I had a slide in here, I thought, that gave a bunch of math, and I didn't see it go by, so I don't know if I dropped it out or what, but the building could have 300,000 square feet if we just went square all the way up and didn't taper it at the top. It's 200,000 square feet by design, according to this model that I showed you. So that 100,000 square feet, if you can add that extra, it lowers the cost on all the rest of the square feet and helps get the price point down to a really attractive level. So it's the classic risk versus greed conundrum, right? Yes, thank you.
So we're a research group. Let's do a quick little research project. I'm just curious, how many people either would be interested or in the foreseeable future would be interested in living downtown or know that somebody who would like to take advantage of living downtown? Wow, deal's done. That's great. All right. A friendly reminder that we have written the histories of the building that are of about 50, 60 copies up front. If we run out of copies, just leave your business card and we will email those to you.